So let's practice this again. Here we know that A is 1, B is -6, and C is 9. So how does it open? Well, A is positive, so that means it opens up. So let's look at the vertex. X is equal to the opposite of B over 2 times A. Remember, that's the formula. So we get opposite of -6 is 6 over 2, which is 3. So we're going to put that back into our equation to find y. So we'll have 3 squared minus 6 times 3 plus 9. If we type that into our calculator all at once, just like you see it, you get 0. So our vertex is 3, 0. So that would be right here. So now we're going to find the y-intercept. Remember, that means that we want to make x equal 0. So we'd have 0 squared minus 6 times 0 plus 9. The 0 here doesn't do anything, and this 0 doesn't do anything, which just tells us that y is 9. So on the y-axis, we have a point right here. Okay, and remember that it's also symmetric. So if we have a point right here, that's 3 to the left of the vertex. Let's maybe draw sort of a little dashed line down, straight up and down through the vertex. That's called the line of symmetry. And if we have a point at 9 to the left of that, there'd be also a point at 9 to the right of that, the same distance, like right here. That just helps us if we're drawing on paper. In your homework, all you have to do is click on the vertex and then click on that y-axis, and it will draw the graph for you. So there's our parabola. And we'll copy it here again. So now what's the domain? Remember, the domain is always all real numbers because x can be anything we want. So now let's look at the range. The range goes from this straight up for all y values. So the range starts at 0 and it goes to infinity. 0 is included because that's where the vertex is. This again has a minimum value because it opens up. And the minimum value, the smallest y value, is y equals 0. And that happens where x is 3. And that's because this is the vertex. Remember, the vertex was 3, 0. But the minimum is the y value and the where is the x value. Okay, so we'll look at this example now. There's a negative in front. Remember, A is -1 in this case, B is 6, and C is 5. And because A is negative, remember that tells us that the parabola will open down. So let's find the vertex. It's still the same formula. So we have opposite of B over 2 times A. That gives us -6 over -2 or 3. And then we'll plug that 3 in for x. Be really careful because this negative was already there. That means it has to be outside the parentheses when you put 3 inside the parentheses. And when you type it into your calculator, you need to have it written like that, or else you'll get the wrong answer. So you get y is equal to 14 here. So that gives us the vertex of 3, 14. Which would be right here. So our vertex again was 3, 14 right here. So now we need the y-intercept, so we're going to put 0 in for x. So we'll have negative 0 squared plus 6 times 0 plus 5. And the 0 cancels this spot out and cancels this spot out and leaves us with y equals 5. So on the y-axis, we have a dot right there. And again, if we're symmetric, that would also give us a dot right here. So that means I can graph this. Curved. Something like that. So I'll put that back on this graph here. The domain is always all real numbers because x can be anything we want. Now the range here, you can see the range, the y values stop or go that from there, from that vertex, and go this way. But we want to read the range from always from the bottom up, the y values. So we would have to start at negative infinity, and then it goes up to 14, and 14 is included. This one has a max because it has a top value, it opens down, and the max value is that y value of 14. That's the biggest y value we have, and it happens where x is 3, and remember that's again because the vertex was 3, 14. The max value is the y and the where is the x. So one more example. In this situation, we want to find the max or the min without graphing it. So first of all, we need to recognize that a is -1, b is 10, and c is 14. And because a is -1, we know that the parabola opens down, and that means that we have a max. There's a highest point. Okay, so then we want to find that value and where it occurs. Now remember that this is just really telling us, it's a whole other way of saying find the vertex. So we'll use x is equal to -b over 2 times a. So we'll have -10 over 2 times -1. And that would give us -10 over -2 and makes us our x be 5. So we'll plug that 5 back in to get our y. So we have -5 squared plus 10 times 5 plus 14. Now again, be really careful about the parentheses. They're just around the 5, not around the negative. And we can type that into our calculator, and that tells us that y is 39. So our max value is 39, where x is 5.